and what do they need to do to take away an abnormally slow Chiefs team?
Well, going off of your last point, I think you have to win up front. I think the defensive line has to be able to get home this week. You have to get Mahomes on the ground, whether that's Greg Rousseau, Von Miller, AJ Epinesa, and his 5 sacks, whoever it may be, Quentin Jefferson again, Jordan Phillips. I'm excited to see Big Phil with Bills Mafia because he always gets a crowd going. So I don't care who it is. You just got to get home. And we open up the show talking about Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones. Again, those are your 2 guys that are making $80 million total between their contracts, and they have 3 tackles and 0 sacks over the last 2 weeks. I got to see something from them. So that is my main game plan on defense, because we know it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Josh Allen. Both defense are probably going to play a 2 high cover shell, and is probably going to be bend but don't break, where it's like, all right, Kareem Hunt, you can have your 5 to 7 rushing yards, but we're going to tighten up in the end. And the Chiefs will get their yards just like the Bills will. So I think that's what it comes down to me for the defense. You just have to be able to win up front and get pressure on Mahomes. That being said, for the offense, I don't need to speak on Josh Allen too much, because I think we know what Allen's going to bring to the table. He seems to rise to the occasion when the lights are brightest. So I'm not too worried about Josh. The point that I want to make about the offense, though, is Joe Brady is still sticking with those 1st and 10 runs. I don't know how many times he did it on Sunday, but there were a lot of times when it was 1st and 10, hand off to James Cook, hand off to James Cook, hand off to James Cook. The Chiefs are going to pick up on that. Steve Spagnuolo is very smart, and that defense is just very, very good in general. And I know it works for the Bills, where Cook can rip off, as I just mentioned with Kareem Hunt. Cook can do the same thing, go for 5 to 7 yards. But I think you need to mix it up, because you're not even seeing like the pitches or the sweeps or the counters. It's usually just a draw right up the middle. And I think it's going to run its course. So I think that is what I want to see from this Bills offense. Just try to mix it up a little bit. And we talked about the pass catchers that the Bills could potentially be without, between Coleman, Kincaid, and Cooper. Going off of my point with James Cook, how about we see the running backs in the passing game? How about we see a little bit more Ray Davis? I know you're not a big Curtis Samuel fan, but maybe just something more that'll throw the Chiefs off.
Possibly what's interesting to kind of break that point down. 29 series started for the Bills last week against the Colts. So 29 1st and 10s. 20 of them started with a rush, 80% success rate. 9 of them, of the 29, started with a pass, 55% success rate. The problem is Brady's going to go to the well and tell you, my data supports an 80% success rate. Conversely, for the Colts, let's right. I know it's Joe Flacco, 28 series, so 28 1st and 10s. 17 started with a pass and 11 started with a rush. So at some point, when you have the shell coverages that Spagnuolo is going to throw you, it's all about the coverage they see is what dictates this, at least what Josh Allen would tell you if he was on here with us as the third person. And
hey, maybe we can do that.
If he sees a 2 high shell and he's seeing 80% success rates, he's going to run it. I mean, it's frustrating at times. I actually have a bigger problem with 2nd down runs. That's one I never want to see a 2nd down run unless I don't even want to see a second. The Bills do tend to run 2nd and 2, 2nd and 1 when you can take a shot. The Bills are all about getting a new set of 1st downs. That is how they play offense. The Bills want another 1st and 10. They don't care how they get it. They want it, and they want it as quickly as possible. So that is their mentality. That is the Joe Brady mentality. I don't know. I don't have the data in front of me to see how Brian Daboll was on those situations. I could go back and look. But at least for Joe Brady, his philosophy is get a new 1st and 10. 80% success rate, 20 out of 29 drives started with a rush. The Bills are feeling like that's the best way to get a 1st and 10. And they're gonna ride that out. Into the sunset when it comes to it. A 0.18 success rate in general, an EPA per play running the ball last week on a per play basis. Really good from a running perspective. It's really tough to affect games with running the ball. For instance, everybody's favorite Jonathan Taylor, negative 0.15 running the ball last week in totality, and a negative 0.13 as a team running the ball for the Colts last week. Very ineffective running the ball. So the Bills to have basically a 0.2, meaning 0.2 yards, 0.2 points over expectation every time they run the ball is a very big number from a rush standpoint. They're very successful at it. So when it comes down to the game plan, for me specifically, the tackles of the Kansas City Chiefs, play coverage, put everything in front of you. They're very successful at converting 1st downs. Don't get frustrated when Mahomes converts first downs. It's what he does historically, and they do it at a really good clip this year. Get them behind the sticks. Those success rates, the reason I bring up the third down and fourth down success rate for the Bills on rush defense, then we need to see that. And we need to see that offense because they're going to be in situations where they're going to have easy conversions. So the Bills need to come up big there. And we need to see those 7 stops that the Bills saw last week with 0 yards or less running the ball. The Bills need to put them behind the sticks. That is how you get out in front of the Kansas City Chiefs and make them struggle. They had a very struggling performance against the Broncos, doing the same thing. Kareem Hunt, 14 carries for 35 yards last week, was not very good and not very effective. Kareem Hunt was more effective out of the backfield. Travis Kelce seems to always pick it up toward the end of the year than how he starts. Hopkins has obviously been a pretty good addition for them so far in his performances, most notably against that Tampa Bay game, but still continued to keep it up with his 4 catches for 56 yards last week. But I don't ever have a worry against the Chiefs receivers since they've had Tyreek Hill. The Bills are going to have to be solid there in the first place. So that is just keep everything in front of you, get them in third and longs, get them in at least in third and mediums, and hope to get them off the field and get them out of their third down rate. That has been so successful for them, 7 for 16 this week. And that's not even that great against the Broncos, but it is even in a bad performance, they're still converting first downs. You need to make sure that they're behind the sticks early and often in that game, because their defense is probably going to show up. And they definitely have some vulnerabilities on the boundary. Bills need to attack their weak cornerbacks, in my opinion. They've been swapping since Jalen Watson went down. They've been looking for a boundary corner, and they've been trying a couple of different things. So that's why it's so important. Jamari Connors, their nickel corner right now, is a converted safety, kind of safety in the mold of that he's going to be on Khalil Shakir. Trent McDuffie's probably going to see the receiver one. So Mac Hollins may have a very winnable matchup against a Christian Roland Wallace, who's been starting there lately as their boundary corner. We definitely need the third weapon of the Bills to come forward. And this would be a good game to do so. Nick Bolton's a really good linebacker, isn't overly great in coverage. Leo Chenal's more their coverage guy. Drew Tranquill hasn't been good himself from the linebacker position. They don't really get a ton, in my opinion, from their edges in this game. It's not going to be one that's going to break the bank. That's why they went and traded for Josh Uche. Karlaftis is pretty good himself, but they haven't had much else beside that. And obviously they have Chris Jones from the interior. So a couple of good interior players, but not a ton on that front seven that's overly scary, at least. Bills have a winnable game, Kevin. It's funny to say, but they need to go out and dominate, and they need to put them behind the sticks and show that 22 for 24 at home actually is a thing.
That being said, the final thing that I'll say before we bring Pat on, I know this is going to sound simple, but don't beat yourself, right? Like, just play your game, do everything right, and hopefully that bodes well for you, because the Chiefs are 7-0 in 1-score games this year, and obviously they're 2-0 in double-digit or in 2-score games plus. But the Chiefs know how to finish games, and credit to them. As lucky as they may be, they are a good team, because good teams know how to finish those teams off. And a lot of the times, the Chiefs, specifically in the playoffs, have been able to beat the Bills in those 1-score games. And I feel like a lot of that has been because the Bills have beat themselves. So you got to make your kicks, catch all your passes, run the right routes. Sean McDermott can't have any mental lapses with his clock manager or game management. No turnovers. You got to win the turnover battle. So again, Kansas City is a very good team, but I think my overall takeaway here is play your game, do everything to the best of your ability, and just do not beat yourself. And I think that the Bills will be okay.